One second. Waiting for the feed to connect. Sometimes it takes a minute.
Yeah, I'm working on getting it here. Short-term shop. I'm going live on the short-term shop.
All right. It is loading now. Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? Today we have a very cool live stream. How are you doing today? We are going to talk about, oh crap, hang on. I am not muted over here. Sorry about that. All right. So today we have a really cool live stream. We are going to talk about the Western North Carolina mountains, not the high country. We're talking about the southwestern corner of the state. I'll let Jay, our agent over on that side of the mountains, take it away. How's it going, Jay?
Hey, how's it going, Avery? Excited to be here. This is an awesome market out here. What we're going to do is we're going to start with Asheville here. Unfortunately, STRs are not allowed in Asheville at this point, except for in a couple of zoning districts that are like resort and are really small. But still, there's some stuff that is important to know here. Used to be have to get a permit to have a short-term rental in Asheville, and a lot of these still have it. So if somebody sells a property in Asheville, as long as it has a permit, you can take it over and grandfather in and still operate in Asheville. But nothing new is available here. You can come up here to Woodfin, and they're the only other ones that kind of restricted it in their little area here. But everything on the around the outskirts and of Asheville, like Weaverville, Swannanoa, Black Mountain, Candler over here, all those are good. And as far as permits and all that stuff in North Carolina, in this area, we don't require anything except for registering and paying your taxes is about it. So no business licenses are required here. So why do we come to Asheville? Like, there's a lot of great stuff in Asheville. It's got its downtown scene around here, street performers, all kinds of stuff like that, shops. You have the Biltmore House here, which is one of the oldest standing buildings here. It was built in 1895 by George Vanderbilt, and they've kind of turned it into a tour it and tour the gardens and stuff. And there's a lot of good little parks around Asheville that people flock to. So just real quick on Asheville, we're going to move towards the west here. So that kind of brings me to Canton. Now, Canton, you kind of want to be careful in Canton, because if you see this right here, this is the Evergreen packaging plant. This is a paper mill. It smells like hot farts down through here like all year round. So your guests will definitely comment on the smell. I mean, if you live here long term, you kind of get used to it, but it's I don't know if you ever smelled a paper mill, it's not fun. But they do allow short-term rentals here, and everything else I'm going to go over here with you. There's no regulations except for like in Silva, but we'll get there. If you go, you can get stuff here in northeastern Canton, because up in this area, that's kind of upwind of the plant here. And Canton is a great place because it's only 20 minutes from Asheville. So, you stay here, drive to Asheville, whatnot. That smell kind of wafts in this direction here and kind of dissipates around here. So it's great because there's nothing out here. It's in the middle of nowhere right here. Very occasionally you'll smell it in Waynesville, but it just depends on the time of year and like storms and stuff. So not much really in Canton as far as attractions go. It's more of just a paper mill town. So and then you moving west over here, we got Clyde, and Clyde kind of the bridge between Canton and Waynesville. Canton and Clyde, Waynesville, Maggie Valley, this is all Haywood County. Haywood County is extremely short-term rental friendly. And then Clyde's Clyde's all right. Clyde's a good town, good city. Not a whole lot here. It's kind of more of these bridges in between the tourist traffic. So now here's Waynesville, and I live in Waynesville, actually. I'm like 5 minutes from Maggie Valley. Waynesville has Lake Junaluska right here. And Lake Junaluska is a man-made lake, but it has incredible views of the lake in summertime. They do drain it in the wintertime, so it's kind of ugly in the wintertime, but overall, this is a great place. They have several religious factions come here and have summits, and there's business summits here, and this happens like all year round here. So you'll definitely have need for lodging while you're here throughout the year. So, and just the outskirts around Waynesville are great too. They're pretty close to all this other stuff. And then moving a little bit west. Now here is Jonathan Valley right here. We call it J Creek. I do actually have one up in here, and it does great. It's 5 minutes from I-40. You're in the country right here. Jonathan Valley is it's a straight shot right through. Since you're 5 minutes from I-40, it doesn't take much time to get other places. So, and then 40 does run all the way through up into Asheville, and actually up into Tennessee too. But this little area here, I do recommend it. It is a great little area, great community. So, and then that brings us to Maggie Valley. Maggie Valley has a great seasonality, just for the fact that it has a ski resort here, and they also have a snow tubing in the wintertime here. So it does bring that traffic for people. It's the closest place to ski if you live in Florida, as far as I know. And that's kind of like our biggest demographic is people from Florida, as far as tourism goes. And it's a very sought out place for retirees, people moving up here and getting second homes, or just retiring up here to the mountains. This is like the #1 destination, really. Maggie Valley is not that big. It's only about 1,800 people. The rest of it is, tourism. There's 2 spots in Maggie. It's like right around here that is zoned specifically for short-term rentals. Like that zoning has to be a vacation rental. So Maggie Valley is also a great place because you're only 30 minutes from Cherokee, and they have a huge casino out there. And Cherokee itself is just great for tourism. Lots to do there. Unfortunately, if you're not Cherokee, you can't own property in Cherokee, which is unfortunate because I imagine they do really well out there. But you come to Maggie Valley because you're coming up here to visit grandma for the holidays. Grandma's only got a 2-bedroom because that's all they really need. So family, is forced to go stay in a short-term rental. So that's kind of adds to that seasonality of being up here. A lot of people do come up here for the holidays, and obviously 4th of July is just ridiculous up here. So they do have the Wheels Through Time Museum here, which we've spotted Jason Momoa there a couple times. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, that's Maggie Valley, and you can get to Bryson City through Maggie Valley, and Bryson City is kind of is our next stop here. So here's Cherokee, there's the casino, and then 19 runs through Cherokee and comes out over here in Bryson City. Now, if you like waterfalls and hiking, biking, fishing, whitewater rafting, that's what brings people to Bryson City, because it is right in the middle of the Nantahala Outdoor Center. And that's somewhere, right down here. And it's located in the Nantahala Forest, and there's several state parks that kind of converge in this little area here. And I would say Whittier is kind of, I kind of lump that in with Bryson City, it's a smaller suburb of Bryson City. Interestingly enough, the country club here in Bryson City actually is very short-term rental friendly. And when you pay your HOA or your POA dues here, all of the amenities from the country club trickle down to your guests as well. So they do have pretty high POA fees though. Let's see, what else do we got here? And then you know, after Bryson City, you kind of get into your more rural areas. You know, Murphy does pretty good. It's country. Graham County over here, that they do allow short-term rentals here, and they, you know, they do pretty well as well. Also, but I like to push for, you know, Maggie Valley. It's a great place, and you can find some great deals here in Maggie Valley. But that's kind of the overview of why people come up here. So, yeah. Do we have any questions on that? Or
Yeah, we've got a few questions.
I actually have, if you
go
don't
ahead.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, go
So, can you scroll out a little bit and show me 40 and get me up towards you know, like the Tennessee side of things, and just get me a little familiar with exactly maybe a further out a picture of what we're doing here. So I guess 40 is going to bring you around up through the very eastern end of like Cosby.
yeah, we're actually only 30, like where I'm at, I'm only 30 minutes from Tennessee border. That takes you up through, let's see. There's the border here. Yeah, it is. Right around in here. Yeah, Appalachian Trail.
If
Hartford,
if I want to
Lupton.
go, if I want to go, let's say from Asheville to Pigeon Forge, I'm going to take 40, or I'm going to take
Yeah.
the Klingman's Dome, you know, the slow way.
Yeah, I would take 40. 40 will get you there quicker than that. If you're in, like, say, Maggie Valley, you can take that like creek back through Cherokee into Gatlinburg and stuff up and through there. It is actually a very pretty drive too. So it really just depends on how fast you want to get there and what scenery you want to look at. So we have a lot of that up here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you go, we've done that trip from like Gatlinburg to Cherokee many
Mhm.
times, and it's very slow going, but beautiful. So I guess you could go out of your way up to 40, and actually, even though it's going to be way more miles, it's probably a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's going to be quicker. So like if you're staying in Maggie, you'd come up Delwood here and then 276 to 40. You know, like that's the Jonathan Creek right there. I was talking about, that's 5 minutes from 40. And then you just, you know, you head north on 40 and it actually takes you right by. I think you can see some of the stuff in Gatlinburg from the highway there. So
Okay, cool. And so, like, any of these areas that you're mentioning that are more, you know, I mean, is it kind of like dealer's choice here? Like the guy, you know, if I'm shopping around, any of these are going to be great. It just depends on my personality and my taste. Or is one area more lucrative than the other? Or is it really just what part of the mountain, you know, that you like, that kind of thing? Or
so a couple key features factors up here are accessibility and a view. Like if the places have a view, those tend to like go faster because, you know, why are we in the mountains? Another thing is you know, roads can be kind of wonky. If I can't get up there in a 4-cylinder, then I would recommend against it. But you do have kind of like a pick of whatever's here. If it's an existing short-term rental, obviously that we're seeing that those are, you know, they're going a little bit quicker. So that you would have to jump on and be a little competitive. But
so with the existing short-term rental Asheville thing, for me personally, I'm kind of turned off by that. Is that something that I want to do, or is there still a chance that at some point they may take that permit away from me?
as of now, they're not taken anything away. It's all grandfathered in at this point. You know, to be honest, I don't think that the restrictions that they do have there, I think we might run into a Wilmington kind of case at some point, and short-term rentals might be available again there. But that's just, you know, that's not, nothing's in stone yet, but they still do pretty great there if you can find one with that permit. So going forward though, nothing does require that permit. So it still does pretty well there. There's about 2,700 short-term rentals in Asheville right now.
2,700. Okay. If property hits the MLS with the permit, is it worth more than a house that doesn't have a permit?
Not necessarily. No, I don't see it having that distinction or anything. Also, if the house doesn't have a permit, you can appeal and see if you can get special condition and zoning for it. But, you know, usually they'll do that. But, you know, you buy the house and then they tell you no. And, you know, you just bought a house that can't short-term rent, and ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. What's an average purchase price here? And like let's say Maggie Valley-ish, somewhere over there, which is that on this screen that we're looking at right now? I think it's further to the west a little.
Yeah, we're in Nashville right now.
There you go. Yeah. What's a 3-bedroom house go for, give or take, in today's, you know, obviously this depends on the time of day right now, but you know, just an average ballpark.
That's a really hard question to answer because we're not cookie cutter up here at all. Like you could have the same house, same floor plan, except one's on 10 acres and it's, you know, 100,000 more than the other. But 3 bedrooms I see starting at about 350 plus. Obviously the quality of your house is going to be a little bit better as the price point does go up.
I'm sorry. So 3-bedroom house, like it's just a 3.2, nothing fancy. Give me like a $150,000 ballpark range, or 100,000.
Yeah, it's about 320 to like 450, I would say, around up here. So,
Avery, did you want to? I mean, I can keep going, but
no,
I'll go all day.
Yeah, we've got a few questions. Some of them we've already kind of touched on, but we can hit them directly. So Alexandria says, are home prices on the North Carolina side generally lower than the Tennessee side of the Smokies? I'm going to go with yes. Yeah,
a little bit. And we're coming down too. I see like price reductions like almost daily up here. So we're starting to like come down off of that high inflation on homes as the interest rates rise. So and there's a lot of good deals to be had too. I've seen some good stuff lately.
Awesome. Priya says, how is the return in this area when compared to Tennessee? So I think that you can achieve a comparable ROI in either market, but you're just going to see differences in purchase prices and gross annual income. So it's all kind of relative, but I don't know, Jay, if you have anything specific you want to speak to about that.
Yeah, I don't know, because I really don't know like the Tennessee side of the market, how that compares over here. But I think you're about right on that.
Do you get sick of people comparing your side of the mountain to the East Tennessee side?
Yeah, I get that all the time. They're like, well, what about Pigeon Forge? I'm like, well, what about Maggie Valley? you know, let's go. Yeah, it's apples and oranges here. Do you want to go to Dollywood or you want to go hiking? What do you want to do?
Right. Is it safe to say it's a bit more like maybe like Blue Ridge, where you do need to have, you know, you need to pay attention and have a really cool house that actually you care about to get a little more action. Whereas at least, you know, the past couple of years in Pigeon Forge, you could rent an outhouse, as Avery has said before, which is starting to change. But you know what I mean? Is it a little, you know, we need to have a cool hip house here, or will anything rent?
I'm sure Avery could cash flow an outhouse, but
she could. Yeah.
No, you know, honestly, with all the themes, you know, the majority of it, what I see, people generally just don't care. I mean, what they want here is that mountain immersion, like the views are great. It doesn't necessarily hinder you from cash flowing if you don't have a view, but I get a lot of questions. Well, should I get a cabin up here? I'm like, people that built log cabins back in the old days didn't really necessarily want to stay in those. So mostly what you see is they like that rustic immersion in the mountains up here. And I wouldn't limit your search up here just to cabins, because you could take a normal house and make it look rustic and still have that same immersion up here. But
about how much extra would a view cost me? I think in the Smokies, it's really anywhere from 50 grand for a little peekaboo to maybe even all the way up to 150 grand for a ridiculous view. Avery, am I off on those numbers? 50 to 150 grand?
Yeah, it just depends on the property itself. Like there's so many new constructions that are super modern that are going to be more. So it's hard to say, but yeah, anywhere between that.
Jay, would you say that those numbers are fairly accurate for a decent view? Like how much more am I looking for? Is it like I want to get leather versus cloth in my Chevy, or what is it?
Yeah, it's typically about the same there. It really is dependent on the property as well. If it's like a crab box, then a view's not gonna make it any better if you fall through the floor when you walk in, So
interesting you mentioned that. Can I buy a crap box with a view and fix it up and make it a really, does that exist?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. There, and you will find you better deals on that, like as far as finding the shit box and then fixing it up and short-term renting it out. Absolutely. Like,
so
there's a
value
lot
add
of those
is
here.
okay. That's good to know, because we're in most vacation areas that doesn't really exist. So if somebody's looking for a fixer,
Mm-hmm.
and why wouldn't you in a lot of cases, or at least something that you can add some equity to? This is something that we're not used to in most vacation markets. So that's good news.
Yeah, I actually just saw. I was going to show some clients a house over in where's it at? Black Mountain, I think, and it needed a lot of work, but it was only up there for like 200,000. So like it was on like 6 acres too. So yeah, I mean, up here, acreage is a factor as well. So I could sell you land all day long up here though, but it's on the side of a mountain, so like 90 degrees.
So when you say 6 acres on that house, is it like half an acre of it's usable and the other 5.5 is straight up, or is that pretty common?
Yeah, there's a lot of that has acreage, and it's just not usable unless you want to really get in there and develop. Depending on what you do, you might need a retaining wall because the mountains move up here like something fierce. So like it's a lot of the cases, if it's on the side of a mountain, it's just more of a headache and money to do something with it.
I like that Smoky Mountain, that cow pasture, Smoky Mountain cow pasture style, where they put like build dirt retaining walls into the side of the hill so the cows can get up and not fall down, because that's the only place they could get them some grass. I love that.
Yeah. Funny. Yeah. Also with like, it rains like almost it rains a lot here, and we get a lot of runoff too on those side of the mountain kind of things. And, your decks are only rated for so long. And if you get if you get in a bad spot, eventually that deck's going to come down preemptively, So.
All right, we have a few more, or quite a few more actually. Is this primarily a drive-to location, and what would be the closest airport?
Yeah, well, it depends on where you're at. If you can drive, a lot of people that we have that come up here from Florida, and they do drive up here usually. Our closest airport is going to be Asheville Airport, and it's a little small. I don't know what its rates are comparable to the other ones, but the other 2 closest ones are going to be in Knoxville and Atlanta. So, and Atlanta is about 2.5 hours from here at the airport there. I don't recommend Atlanta because their traffic is absolutely horrible. I don't want to get stuck in Atlanta traffic.
So really, Knoxville is your best option, and that's what, 2.5 hours, 3?
Yeah, about that. To be honest, my son lives in Oklahoma, and when I fly him into Asheville. Like I'll pay the extra bit, because I'm gonna pay that much in gas going out to Knoxville. So it's, and Asheville Airport's not bad. It's just small. So you usually get a layover there.
So we can fly into Asheville, but limited number of flights.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So a lot of drivable, which is ideal. It's ideal
Mm-hmm.
for rental purposes. Drive to is, I think Avery will agree, the way to go.
Yeah, and we do get a lot of the surrounding drive-ins, like from Georgia and South Carolina, and Tennessee. Oddly enough, we have a lot of people that visit here from India, specifically. But our majority is from Florida, and that's only like an 8-hour drive, from Orlando to here.
Oh, it's only 8 hours from Orlando to there?
Yeah,
Seems
yeah, about
like it'd
that.
be
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I grew up in Orlando, and we used to come up here to visit grandma, like I was saying. And yeah, it's about an 8-hour drive, 8.5.
All right. So Brooklyn says she might have missed this at the beginning, but what are the regulations like as a whole? We talked a little bit about Asheville and how it's kind of Asheville proper, how it's a little bit back and forth on it. It's not allowed, then it is allowed, then it's not, or whatever. But what about the rest of the area?
One thing I didn't go over Silva, and that's kind of west of Waynesville and Maggie Valley. They have just ugly restrictions on there, and I would honestly just recommend staying away from Silva. But that in the Highlands just passed, regulations. You can't have short-term rentals there anymore. That's really going to be your $1 million plus homes up in there in Highlands anyway. That's what you're looking for. Outside of that, it's North Carolina as a whole is just short-term rental friendly. Like I said, you don't have to get a business license out here. You don't have to get a permit anymore. You just have to get your taxes in order, and that's pretty well it. Most of these counties here have no regulations at all. So, except for Asheville, those two I just mentioned.
As with any market, of course, we want to encourage everybody to make sure they're paying their taxes. I mean, you think it's common sense, but a lot of folks maybe don't know that. So make sure you're following the local legislation and laws and everything. And it's most likely going to be like a hotel and sales tax situation, like many of our markets. So make sure you're paying the man, because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Also, the occupancy tax up here consistently across the board is like 4%. So our property tax up here, it's not the lowest. But until I had a client, he told me what his property tax was in Texas, and I was like, holy shit. It's like it's average about 0.7% for property tax here a year. I do know Maggie Valley city tax is 40 cents per $100 assessed value. So, but
okay.
Maggie Valley proper is only really that one road that runs through there. If you get stuff on the outskirts of it, that's outside of city limits. So they really end like that little strip is city limits.
Okay. Yep.
All right. We got a few more in there. The prices for a 3-bedroom that we were talking about earlier, like that $320 to $450, is that typically for a turnkey property? And let me just preface that with, I hate the word turnkey because it's like the word luxury. It means something different to everybody. It's very subjective, but by turnkey for short-term shop standards, we mean like it comes furnished and pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you will pay a little bit more if you want it furnished. And a lot of places up here, they're not necessarily short-term rentals, but they will give you the option to purchase furnished because, a lot of people don't live up here full time. And when they're selling and going back to Florida or going wherever they're going, they're like, well, I don't want to deal with all this furniture. So they will you'll have the option to get a place furnished, which is awesome. So, but the turnkey houses, according to Avery's definition, they're not as plentiful. Now they do come up, but they're the ones that people jump on really quick. So you get, and we're not seeing like huge bid wars on those. Maybe 1 or 2 offers. So we'll work together and come up with a strategy.
But local furniture stores are hip to short term. Like if you give them a door code, they're cool to drop the furniture off and things like that. Or are there any local furniture stores?
there's not really any local furniture stores up here, and the ones that we do have, you don't want to use them. I mean, you might want to use them for short-term rental. You don't want to spend like $1 million on furniture, though. A lot of the furniture makers are like, hand carved furniture up here. So I think like one of the closest furniture stores would be in Asheville, and then you have IKEA over the border of Tennessee there. So, but as far as that question, Luke, I honestly I've never run in that situation, so I really don't know as far as delivery of furniture. So I could find that out for you.
No, that's okay. It's always
Yeah,
Wayfair.
Yeah.
Wayfair,
Or
yeah, hell yeah.
Post
That's lots of
GPO.
good-
Yeah. Siobhan says, is it possible to get a lakefront or riverfront property in this area or not so much?
Absolutely, yeah. And I was telling you about Lake Junaluska. It's a man-made lake. It's only about 10 feet deep anywhere you go, but you can't really see the bottom, so it looks like a awesome lake. But absolutely, there's a lot of deals in Lake Junaluska there, and there's also Fontana Dam over in Graham County in Robbinsville. That's it's got lakefront there. Cashers, you can find some lakefront property out there as well. We do have a lot of cool lakes out here, and they're all short-term friendly. So now, if you want like a nice stream or a waterfall on your property, like that's really hard to find up here. Those go absolutely quick. To have that water on your property and stuff. So.
Now we've got Julie signing on. She and her family have owned over in Maggie Valley for like 20 years. So she's hopping on too. Hey, Julie, how's it going?
Yeah, her dad's house is amazing.
Sorry to horn in, and full disclosure to everybody, I do not have a short-term rental in here, and we do not short-term rent my family's cabins. So I don't have that much to say on that side, but just as far as an experiential thing, like I've been going to Maggie Valley since I was 12 years old. I love it over there. And so I have some knowledge of that kind of thing that might be helpful. And when you're, just to backtrack a little bit, when you're talking about furniture stores, I mean, the furniture stores I know of, there are some in Maggie Valley. The one that I know the best is called High Country, but they have some really nice stuff. I'm sure they could fully outfit a cabin. It will cost you.
That's what I meant by like some of the local ones. You're going to pay a pretty penny for that.
Buy once, cry once.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Buy once, cry once.
Yeah, I tell you what, but excuse me, it is a very nice stuff. I don't know where there's an IKEA in Tennessee though. The closest one I know of is in Atlanta.
I thought there was one like right off the border of Tennessee, like in North Carolina there.
If that's true, I want to know about it, but I will I'll research that independently.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, I want to look through.
Are hot tubs common and necessary for short-term rentals on this side of the Smokies like they are on the Tennessee side?
Absolutely. Hot tubs are awesome up here because you're sitting in your hot tub looking out at that view. They absolutely do add to the appeal of a short-term rental up here. Actually, there's one existing short-term rental that just came available on the market, has a hot tub and everything. It's fully furnished. Great. If you're interested in it, let me know. I'll send you a link. That does bring up another good point too, Avery. Pools up here. Like I said, a lot of people from Florida come up here. They love their pools. Pools kind of suck in North Carolina as far as, because you can't put a concrete pool up here because it will crack, it will shift. So you're limited to in-ground liner pools, or above ground pools are fine. But those liner pools, if your guest tears them, yeah, you're spending $5,000 to replace the whole thing. So it's just an extra headache here that a lot of you probably don't want to deal with up here. They are great. Don't get me wrong, pools are pools, but why swim in your pool when you can go hike up to the swimming hole in the river and swim in the crystal clear water?
I actually have a liner pool in Florida, and I've never had any problems with it, but it's very common here. So it's all about, know your market.
Yeah. My parents have a liner pool too. And just let you know, like the dog jumped in, ripped the liner, you could run into that with your, with your guests too, but they're fragile compared to a cement pond.
Yeah, and so I suppose there's a cost benefit analysis to be done there. But yeah, so given the amount that the land shifts there, so do you see a lot of, things like, hairline cracks and foundations, things like that are, where do you differentiate between what is normal and what's alarming, I guess, is my question, because we see that a lot in Tennessee, where there's, as houses settle, then there's, a certain amount of cracks that are normal. And then there's a point where you're just like, oh, this is more concerning. What do you see on your side of the world?
Well, if the deck falls off, that's alarming.
Well, yeah.
Normally, just tiny cracks and stuff in the foundation, you're going to see those because the ground shifts so much, but you kind of look at the soil bank that they're sitting on, what the shape of that looks like and how much stress that's putting on that little area right there. When we do inspections up here, our inspectors do a thorough inspection of like the foundation and everything because of this that problem. So, but I'm pretty sure our standards are similar to what you have in Tennessee over there because the mountains, same mountains. So just different areas.
Yeah. Let's see.
All right, we got a pretty good one in the chat. I just recently backed out of a deal in Maggie Valley, and two big reasons were lack of internet and the driveway would be tricky without four-wheel drive. Any thoughts or advice on this?
That's one of the things I was telling you, like one of the key factors is accessibility. If we're going to go look at a place, let me go look at it. I need to make sure this driveway is, like I said, if I can get up there in a 4-cylinder, your guests will be just fine. I got a little Nissan Versa and that, if it can make it, then most people's cars can make it. So, but I would, if the driveway is absolute crap and, you're struggling to get up it, I would highly recommend, I would not recommend that for a short-term rental just because the people that come up here don't have 4-wheel drive. The internet question, we have Spectrum up here and I'm not 100% sure that Spectrum will service all of Maggie Valley, but there is Carolina Mountain Cable that's out more towards the Jonathan Creek side that do come out to Maggie. So getting internet out there now, it shouldn't be a problem, but it just depends on the area that it's in.
And I have a couple of just personal experience things to say about both of those topics. Actually, our cabin in North Carolina is up 2 miles of gravel road. It is at the very, very top of one of the taller mountains in the area, and
It was
yeah, and it's a bit of a thing. The road is well maintained. That's really crucial if you've got a gravel road. But yeah, it's it can be more challenging sometimes than others. However, I don't think anyone in my most of my family does not have 4-wheel drive vehicles, and people get up and down, without too much trouble, but it can be intimidating. So my point really is, yes, I think, having Jay go up there in his Versa is going to tell you a lot about the road. But don't necessarily be turned off just because it's gravel or just because there's a long length of gravel, because, maybe we're not 2 miles, maybe we're 1 mile, but we're at least 1 mile of gravel road to get to our cabin. And then as for internet, we do not have a cable provider where we are, and we've got, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's one of those like line of sight broadband providers, and they've done really well for us for video streaming and regular internet functionality. Have been pretty happy with that. So even though we don't have cable there, and my family's very heavy on the tech usage, we've been pretty satisfied with what we've been able to get there. So just one more thing, there are options besides the cable providers. So it's a question to ask, find out if that's accessible, and But if so, there are definitely non-cable providers that can still give good service.
Yeah, when it
And
comes to
that's-
mountain internet providers, if you get a no, just keep calling. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
so you're going to start with those two big name brands that Jay, you know, Spectrum, and the other one, which what was that again?
It's Carolina Mountain Cablevision, and they're not really big.
Right.
Like it'll take a month for them to get out there to
Yeah,
fix your
that's
stuff,
pretty common.
you know. So
We'll start with them, and if they both say no, then that means that you don't have, you know, basically there's no tap on your nearest pole, is what that means, and then you're going to have to keep going down a rabbit hole, and might take you to Starlink. Who knows? You know, the Elon Musk internet is getting bigger and bigger, and it actually is pretty kick-ass option in a lot of areas now. And there's a lot of places that provide stuff like that now, like Viper Internet, and that run on a cell tower. And then, of course, what Julie's talking about, the line of sight, which is actually even a better option if you can get that. So mountain internet is always a thing.
it's a bitch.
It is. But, you know, in my experience, at least, if you just keep calling, you'll eventually get a yes. You do want to ask, how many megabits per second am I going to be able to get? Because they'll lie to you. They're trying to sell you this satellite crap that's got like 2 megabits per second and it's got a throttle on it, and that's not gonna. You're better off with nothing.
Goes out when it rains.
Yeah, and it'll put a cap on it, so you can't even watch, you know, Days of Our Lives or whatever, you know. But which is that's exactly what we all need, right? But so, you know, I mean, when Avery and I first started, we had a cabin, same thing. Couldn't really get internet, not a good option anyway. And this was before the cool fancy stuff now. And we just went internet free for like 4 years. And eventually we ended up getting one of these new cell tower providers, and it works great. And we're able to get a camera and a deadbolt and stream television programming and everything. So yeah, it's a bit of a thing. But you know, that's a rabbit hole you're going to need to go down until you find. You're going to need to keep going until you catch that rabbit, basically.
Yeah, internet up here is always a battle, and you know, for the most part, we got it covered up here. Like, you know, if you buy something in Waynesville, like Spectrum services all of Waynesville, Maggie Valley, some of the the higher you get up the mountain is where you're gonna like run into trying to find internet solutions. But for the most part, the people that come up here, they're not up here to sit on their computers. They come up here and then they go out hiking and, you know, outdoor stuff there. Also, Julie, you made a good point on the roads too. Don't necessarily, if it's gravel, don't let that turn you off up here, because we have a ton of HOAs up here, just little HOAs here and there. And yes, some will restrict you from doing short-term rentals, and that's really the only restriction that we're going to run into in this area. But a lot of them are just set up to have like restrictive covenants on like what you can build on that property. And the other part of it is road maintenance agreement. So a lot of the little HOAs will take great care of the road. I went up one the other day, I thought was asphalt, but I got out of the car and I was like, oh, that's packed gravel. This stuff's good. And so absolutely don't let that turn you off. Just let me go up there. If I get stuck, then, you know, we'll go from there.
Is there a fair amount of competition with hotels in the Asheville or Maggie Valley area, or is it primarily a short-term rental market?
It is a short-term rental market. There are hotels, obviously, your 5-star hotels in Asheville that, you know, and just coming out the Maggie Valley, there's a ton of little motels down through Maggie Valley, but they're all crap. they're not your, you know, Ritz-Carlton. They're, you know, most people would rather stay in a private short-term rental. So that's kind of what we've kind of advertised up here. Oh, come up to the mountain, stay in a short-term rental, have your private, you know, stay. So
yeah, the stuff in Maggie Valley is all like, you know, motor, you know,
yeah, we have that motorhome,
motor hotels
there.
and yeah, there's not much even in the way of like a Hampton Inn level sort of thing. It's all very mom and pop, small roadside motel style things. And some of them are, you know, are cute, but they are what they are, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, luxury stay in a hotel, there's definitely some fantastic options in Asheville, but as far as, you know, there's not a huge hotel presence, I wouldn't say, in either place. Definitely not in Maggie.
Now Asheville, yeah, they do have those the hotels there, but mostly people that go and stay there are like business trippers, you know. and
The
and
Grove
for-
Park Inn, really?
So, um, but yeah, people love the short-term rentals up here. So it adds to the mountain experience.
Seeing if we have any more questions. I don't think, if I do buy a crap box, are there any good contractors to do renovations?
There are definitely some good contractors. However, you know, time frame on that is, you know, can be longer. They're all backed up. So yeah, I know my buddy, he's a great roofer. He's one of my go-to guys for roofing. And like he's backed up till middle of next year. So but yeah, there are some great contractors up here.
We're seeing that pretty much nationwide at this point. It's you know, it's hard to find good contractors everywhere. But what about housekeepers? Similar vibe there. Everybody always worries about that, and I generally find that it's getting a little easier over the years to find a good housekeeper. But
yeah, turnover B&B, yeah, it's got a good tool there. But yeah, I do have some recommendations for housekeepers up here. There is one that I like, which they are a housekeeper and a maintenance service. So, you know, kind of two birds, one stone there. And I'm still getting that list together for you, Luke. I'll send it to you so you can have the contractors. So
yeah.
I'm going through my contacts and writing them on a spreadsheet for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be happy to provide anybody, you know, that ends up buying a house with Jay or the shop with you know, people that we've come across and provide some value that way. Rachel asked a little bit, can you expand a little bit more on the Canton thing? I know you already mentioned the smell from the paper mill, but other than that, I think she just wants a little bit more of a deep dive there.
Yeah, aside from the obvious like stench and Canton, you know, northeastern Canton is a really nice area. Like it's kind of going up towards like Leicester and stuff in that area. Very nice homes up in there. And the northeastern Canton part of it right there is, you know, it's got good accessibility to the highway. And, you know, being only 20 minutes from Asheville could be a good place. The only thing I do warn you about Canton is that stuff has started to stir in the community. Nothing's set in stone yet, but you know, they are talking about like getting the consensus on what the locals think about short-term rentals, and they're starting to stir the pot a little bit. So
if I'm looking for a view in any of these areas, is it like not like, is it uncommon or is it more common than not? I mean, is it like a third or a quarter of these properties that might have a view, or do most of them have a view? Or
I'd say it's about 50-50 really. There are, you know, it just depends on the level of the view also. Like the higher up you get on the mountain, obviously you're gonna have a better view than down. But like Lake Junaluska, the way it sits, it has a nice view of the lake, and you can see the mountains popping up around behind it, but it's not up the mountain. It's like down in Waynesville, you know. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on where you're at too.
Can I buy a little 1-bedroom honeymoon type place with no mountain view for fairly inexpensive and have good success with it? Or are people looking for a bigger mountain view type of a situation, or all of the above?
Absolutely, Luke. One of the things that people are gone gaga over in Waynesville lately and some of the surrounding areas are these tiny homes. We had some guy come in here recently and buy a plot of land and put 3 tiny homes on it. And, you know, he's doing really well with the short-term rental on that. But so, yeah, absolutely. Buy a little piece of land, throw a tiny home on it or something, and they can do well.
Avery, give a tiny home speech if you don't mind.
So the tiny homes, so they can do really well, but it's a lot of crap in terms of red tape to get through to be able to do a few tiny homes on even unrestricted land. So even if you're buying like 50 unrestricted acres, unrestricted doesn't mean you don't have to get any approval for what you're doing. A lot of times the counties will still make you subdivide the land based on the number of units you're having. So there's still a lot of approvals and permitting processes that you have to go through with the county. If you are going to go the tiny home route, I would make sure that you are adhering to the minimum square footage guidelines for that county so that it can actually count as real estate, so that you can get all of the tax benefits and other things of real estate that, maybe having a tiny home on wheels would not get you, because that is not real estate. It's like
Personal
a car.
property.
Yeah. So that's only going to decrease in value over time, whereas real estate increases. So just make sure that you're exploring all of the different things that you need to know in terms of putting tiny homes places. It's not as easy as just buying a piece of land and plopping down some houses.
Well, I think what we're referring to here is the definition, the actual definition of what is a tiny home. And I think traditionally it is a trailer, a personal property, no different than a mobile home with wheels. And it has it's not going to be financeable if it has a VIN number, right? So it'll have just like a motor home. It's got a VIN number and an axle. That's not something a bank is going to lend on as far as a person. It's not real property. So that doesn't mean you can't put a fixed foundation with only 650 square feet and have an actual real deal house. So it's kind of a fine line there. What is an actual tiny home? Does it have an axle, or is it something that has a foundation that is financeable? So just keep that in mind.
So it does adhere to the same as mobile home standards. So in order for it to become real property, it has to be that wheels and axles have to be removed from it. It has to be unregistered from the DMV, and it has to be put on a permanent foundation to become real property. So,
or you could simply build a brand new 700 square foot house with a permanent foundation. Yeah.
Jay, do you know if there are limits on, or like minimum square footage limits in the zoning laws?
Not so much. Well, in the HOAs, like I told you, there's a lot of them up here, and there are minimum square footage requirements for those. Usually more times than not, there will be. As far as on an unrestricted piece of land and not an HOA, I'm not 100% sure on that, and something I'll have to look at the research. So.
Okay.
But if I wanted to go buy an 800 square foot honeymoon cabin that already exists, does that exist?
They're kind of few and far between, but yeah, they're out there. We either go big or go home. So.
Right. So those big, like 3, 4, 5 bedrooms is more common.
Yeah. And that's one thing I wanted to point out too. Up here, our sweet spot seems to be the 4 bedrooms. If you can't get a 4, 3 works really well too. Just looking at Maggie Valley's data from last year, they out in the 50th percentile, a 4 bedroom out did a 5, and then the 75th, like the 5 bedroom, like only outdid the 4s by like $5,000. So your sweet spot gonna be your 4 bedrooms up here as far as popularity, because like
maybe you get lucky and get a 5 bedroom for the price of a 4 bedroom, and then everybody
exactly. It's not, if you can get a 5 bedroom, like that, hell yeah. But you're gonna usually pay more for a 5 than you are a 4, because it's very family oriented tourism. So you come up, your average family, 4 is perfect for them, because they're coming up here to see grandma. Grandma can't accommodate like all of her sons or daughters. So your 4 bedroom is going to be perfect for your normal family, and 5 is going to be too big. So, and then 5 is going to be too small for the extended family that all want to stay together, and your 6 pluses are for all the aunts and uncles and everybody stay there. So if you can find a 5 at a good deal, though, hell yeah, we'll jump on it. Jump on that.
All right, Avery, how does everybody find Mr. J?
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in buying with the short-term shop in the North Carolina side of the Smokies, email agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will get you connected with Jay. Thanks, guys.